August 21st meeting of the Sherburne County EDA to order. I'd be looking for an approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Also be looking for approval of the July 17th EDA meeting minutes.
So moved.
Noticing a pattern here.
I wasn't here, so.
All right.
I'm the secretary, can I? Yeah.
Second.
Absolutely. All right, I don't know who's in on that, but all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed. All right, brings us to our first real item of business. That's a presentation by Angie from Bolton, Maine, regarding the Central Minnesota River Partnership partnership, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me here. So I'm Angie Bursell with Bolton and Mink, here to present about the Highway 25 Planning and Environmental Linkage Study. Let's see. Good, you have screens on both sides. Okay, so I'm just going to give an overview. I think most of you are familiar with this. Sounds like it's been around, maybe gotten some calls on it. So I'll go over the overview and really try to focus on where we're leaving off with recommendations and next steps. So I'll go over the overview part quickly. But we, this obviously the topic of a new river crossing has been around for decades and has been studied before. So we, back to the dating of the Highway 25 Corridor Coalition in the early 2000s, there was a traffic study done in 2019. Laid out a good foundation of different alternatives and alignments. The CMRP group worked on a land use and economic development strategy in the 2020 timeline, and then we kind of started picking this up in 2023. So we've been at it now a couple of years. It's a long process. And really the point of it is to make a bridge here between planning studies, so traffic, land use, economic development, taking everything that's been done to date, and then bridging into the next steps of environmental documentation that are needed so that hopefully, well not hopefully, we are under the environmental rules so that you don't have to go backwards in doing some of these steps that are required in environmental rules like purpose and need, the alternatives analysis we've done, the outcome of our looking at the alternatives and narrowing to where we're at with our recommendations. Now you just pick up and keep moving forward from this point. There's still a lot of steps to get to, an actual construction project. The biggest step being, funding and working through that next steps to get to, okay, what exactly is a preferred corridor? But you've got a good foundation to build on from this point forward. So it is a broad area. We weren't, we were looking at an area. So it is called an area study, not just one corridor. We are focused on Highway 25 though. That's where we know the problems are, and it's between 94 and Highway 10. So how do we solve the issues of this area? We are looking at, what would we need to do to the existing roadway networks? We have to kind of start there. How could we improve what we have? To then looking at what other new network connections would we need. So we kind of looked at everything.
And Angie, do you want to also explain that these are requirements that the federal and state require these steps to go through?
Yeah.
So we all know in looking at what it is, we need a bridge. That's what we know.
Yep.
But we can't say that. We need to show in these ways, in these steps,
Yep.
why we're getting there.
Exactly. We can't jump to solutions. We have to start with what are the needs, and then, how can we start from the base of how can you improve what's there today? So I know that seems silly to some people. Like you can't, it's downtown Monticello. How can you improve a downtown? How can you widen? How can you build out through a developed area? But we have to look at that. That's required that you start there before you start jumping to new corridors, new bridges, new areas.
And everybody with common sense, it just goes, your head goes
Yeah.
crazy. It's like we know what we
Yeah.
need, but
Especially with all the previous study, right? Yep. Exactly. Very good point. So it has been a long process. This just kind of shows the vision or the steps we've gone through, and to the point of, you have to kind of start at the beginning, and this does take time. So it is a long-term vision, and, you know, also the thought of this is that this doesn't necessarily need to all be built at once. There are things, and we have an implementation plan so that there can be pieces built over time. But we started with, you know, what are the needs we're trying to solve? How could you do that? What are the various alternatives? And then we leave this off with, okay, we looked at 9 different alternatives. We've narrowed it to 3. And we leave that in a good place with tons of public involvement, which we have documented with those 3 recommendations, and now that can be picked up and moved forward. And because we're under the national, federal, state rules, again, you don't have to go backwards. We can kind of keep just moving forward. So just real quick, probably no surprise, the needs that we're all building from here are, you know, we have safety needs on the existing corridor, both in terms of crash rates for vehicles and then also just the congestion. And those two are interrelated because there is so much congestion, we're seeing crash issues. But then also secondarily, you know, this is a downtown, and also we're looking at the area. So we know that people, you know, especially through downtown Monticello, it's a downtown environment. You want to walk and bike, and we could make that better if we didn't have, you know, 30,000 trips a day trying to get through downtown. So there's, you know, there's some secondary benefits we could achieve by improving the network through these areas. So getting to the heart of what we looked at, the lines on the map here are showing our different alternatives. There are 9 of them. The B alternatives are a little bit hard to see, and they're just kind of lumped together, B1, B2, B3. And they're hard to see because they're all on existing network through downtown Monticello. So the categorization of our numbering system or lettering system here is our B alternatives are on our existing roadway network. So B is through how could we improve what's out there today? How could we improve Highway 25 through downtown Monticello and then County Road 11, as it connects up to Highway 10. The C alternatives are, again, connecting to an existing interchange on I-94, you know, kind of circuitously, but some connection to an existing interchange and then up to Highway 10. And then also we have D alternatives that are new interchanges on I-94, both east and west of, you know, downtown Monticello. So we have D1 is on the east side, and then D2, D3 are between Monticello and Becker, and D4 is on the west side of Becker. So we tried to be pretty expansive. Some of these were looked at in the previous study. Some of them are new ideas that we looked at. So once we started looking at drawing lines on maps, then we worked through a detailed evaluation process where we drew the footprint, we looked at impacts, we looked at what would the traffic draw of that for vehicles, for freight, what would, you know, what are the benefits, what are the trade-offs, and then we took all of that information out publicly. This is just showing an example. We did this 3 times in each of our phases of work, we tried to get out to many different events. We had open houses where we had people come to us. We did online engagement. You know, it's a big area, so we're trying to reach people in 3 communities, townships, 2 counties, just trying to be really comprehensive in how we're getting input from the public as we go. And I just summarized here as we started to take these alternatives out, you know, this is a lot of stats and data, and so I just tried to highlight so your eyes can kind of follow here just the general sense of the reactions we were getting. And if you're wondering what A1 is a no build. So what if we did nothing? That's also something we need to look at when we do this environmental process. You kind of compare everything to what if this area continues to grow over the next 20, 25 years and we do nothing? And then we compare all of these, what we call build alternatives, so the B through the Ds, you know, improving it in some fashion. We compare all of that to the do nothing. And so you can kind of just see how the public reaction flowed. So pretty negative reaction to do nothing, of course, and most of the Bs, which are, logic prevails, right? We can't improve what's our existing network, things, and I'll just give you an example. So B1 is sort of expanding downtown Monticello to 6 lanes. Crazy, right? We're gonna be impacting and buying out buildings and property. B2.
And then funnel that down to a bridge that can't be expanded to greater than what it is. 2 lanes going in, 2 lanes going out.
Yeah, we would have to add another bridge, so you'd have another bridge side by side in downtown Monticello. And then B2 is sort of an access control through downtown Monticello where you sort of take away most of the access to just kind of have this like thoroughfare through downtown Monticello. And B3 is a one-way pair. So you have one direction of travel on Highway 25 going north, and then Cedar Street, which is a parallel roadway to the west or north, however you look at that, going the other direction. So 3 lanes one way, 3 lanes the other way. So now you're impacting flow through a neighborhood, basically. And again, these are kind of due diligence requirements, like I've mentioned. So you can see the reaction, right? Not liking any of those ideas. The C ideas, again, they're sort of to the east of downtown, but they still flow through Monticello, right? So they're kind of coming through Monticello. We didn't see good, and I'll touch on this in a bit, but they don't really solve the problem. It sort of moves the problem in terms of traffic flow. And again, not great public reaction to those. And then it sort of shifts, right? So when we start talking about our alternatives between Monticello and Becker, and then even the one to the west of Becker, you see the public perception start to change, right? Of, okay, these start to make more sense. I think logic for people too is just, we heard a lot about freight movements, that's where the freight wants to be. And we saw that too from our analysis, that the freight wants to be to the west. They want to get to that area between Monticello, Becker, or even the Becker area. So, let's give them that opportunity with these alternatives. And just really quickly, some other common themes. You heard a lot about residential impacts. When people weren't liking things, the alternatives, it was about residential impacts. And you see that with County Road 11. There's a lot of pushback. You probably are hearing about it on County Road 11, which is that parallel to the river on the north side of the river with our B alternatives that had to be widened to 4 lanes with our B alternatives. So a lot of neighborhoods not liking that. The C alternatives as well. You're kind of jumping over the river. There's a lot of residential neighborhoods that way. So again, you can kind of read those. I've covered most of it already. We also worked really closely with, of course, MnDOT. They're the owner of Highway 25 and our connecting points with 94 and Highway 10. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. I'm going to talk about that in a bit, but they have a great influence here with the Mississippi River being a wild and scenic river, which is a classification, protection on the river, and it does influence our alternative evaluation. And then we work closely with Xcel Energy, just due to the nuclear power plant, the Sherburne power plant, and then energy-related development and property holdings they have. We were working closely with them on our evaluation. And I should have it on here too, but the University of Minnesota, they have some research facilities in the area, and so we also coordinated with them, just concerned about some of the alternatives and impacts there. So where did we end up? With a Pell study, you end up with 3 different categorization of recommendations. It's kind of a lot of background here, but you're either carrying an alternative forward, or you're not recommending it, which means that at this point, with the information we have available to us, we don't think it justifies, being recommended to carry forward. But we know that these things take time, right? These river crossings take time. If new information becomes available, it is an alternative that you could potentially bring back in the future. Maybe there's something that changes and you want to pull it back forward. But at this point in time, it's not recommended. And then eliminated is that it does not address purpose and need. It is no longer going to be considered. It is put to rest. So what we are recommending at this point, you always carry forward a no-build. That's just a requirement for environmental documents. So A1 is being carried forward. We have 3 alternatives that are recommended beyond the no-build to be carried forward. One is the one-way pair, which the logic is probably jumping out at you, like, why would you carry that forward? And you set it up well of, some of the calls you've been getting to of why would you carry that forward. So back to the Wild and Scenic River, the DNR, this is a Wild and Scenic River. We are at a very high planning level, study level of effort with this PEL study right now. And the Wild and Scenic River regulations state that you need to either, stay on existing crossing, or the next level is to add a crossing as close to existing crossing as you can before you consider a new crossing. And you have to go through a whole bunch of steps to prove that you need a new crossing, including a lot of analysis. And we just don't have the details of analysis at this point to prove that we need that new river crossing. And that analysis is like detailed species surveys, the in the weeds of what an EIS would do for environmental analysis. So that alternative is being carried forward because of that Wild and Scenic River. However, we have, MnDOT does not support that alternative. Sherburne County, Wright County, the public outcry about that alternative, there is very little support for that alternative moving forward. It's just that we are carrying it forward because we need to do more analysis in the next phase to show that, we can pick a spot for a new river crossing that will work for the Wild and Scenic River regulations. So there are 2 then new river crossing alternatives that are being carried forward, D2 and D3. And those are shown on the screen. D2 is just to the east of the nuclear power plant, and we worked very closely with Xcel Energy to pick the power plant staff and their Xcel representatives to pick that location. Just working closely, because that had there were some previous, discussions and studies prior that maybe that wasn't going to work. There were some security concerns and not sure that was going to work. Through this process, have come to a spot saying, no, this is going to work for us. It's okay. We've got a lot more work to do to figure out what exactly that design looks like, and there's some power poles, and how do all the details come together? But that is an alternative that at this point has some opportunity to be further considered.
If I remember correctly, that's around the Orchard Overpass area.
Correct. Yep, Orchard Road. Yep. And then that connects into the location at Highway 10 with Highway 10 and County Road 11. That Sherburne County has also identified for a future interchange area. So bringing that in to that same location on Highway 10. And then D3 is just a little bit further west. Again, it's still to the east side of Becker, but it is between Monticello and Becker. It is near, it would be a new interchange on I-94. They both would be, D2 and D3. And it would connect, again, to a new interchange on Highway 10 to the east side of Becker. And so both of those had the most public support. There's certainly details to be worked out yet. That is sort of the next step to figure out, how, which of these is the preferred corridor, and then work out the details of, okay, how do these actually get designed? There were concerns with D2 with the University of Minnesota's research facility site that we have documented and want to continue working through in the next phase of work in the EIS, feeling like there is some workable way to, realign that or, preserve the research facilities that they have.
Does D3 require a new railroad crossing?
A new railroad up by Highway 10? Yeah, the thought is that with both D2 and D3, that interchange would include a new railroad crossing with the Highway 10 interchange. So it'd be a benefit, an additional benefit at that location as well.
Yep.
Yep.
That's why one of the things that when I was noticing who our stakeholders are, we need to get the railroad on there. Because we're not gonna do much around that railroad without their input and their involvement.
Correct.
So I think it's time to get them involved as well.
Yeah, and you're right. And I do know, just because our firm is also involved with the Highway 10 and 11 interchange and helping get funding for that improvement, which is a separate project, but the railroad was very supportive of getting that funding going because that is a high-risk location for them. And they would love to see grade separation, so there seemed to be a willing partner, but absolutely in the next phase. So those are the recommendations and just a little justification. I pretty much covered most of these already. The reasons for B3, yes, there is, B3 would technically work, but the impacts we are very concerned about. D2, I talked about the attractiveness of freight. That's really what's kind of driving those two locations. And then comparatively fewer property concerns with those locations compared to the other alternatives we've looked at. And then just some justification of why we moved past some of these other alternatives. The B2, again, that was the access control on existing Highway 25. It really didn't give us what we were anticipating to see anyway on Highway 25. It didn't give enough capacity and, of course, had a lot of impacts to existing Monticello. D1, that crosses an area, so the red alignment crosses an area that's really has some more substantial impacts to the wild and scenic river, just how the areas around that river are designated. And when we looked at cost, it was one of the most expensive. And then, I think I covered B1 already. C1 and C2, I mentioned these, just a lot of property impacts with how it touches down on the north side of the river. And it really wasn't giving us much in terms of additional capacity. It was just sort of moving the problem from downtown Monticello to the east side of that community. And what we saw with D4, the yellow alignment, because we did hear a lot of public, interest in D4, and what the technical analysis was showing us is it's just sort of far enough on the outer boundary where it's not drawing enough of the benefit of the traffic. The traffic, there's sort of this Z pattern that people want to do of between I-94 and Highway 10. And D4 is just far enough out that you're not getting that regional benefit of the large regional trips that are happening through this area and then continuing north. So that was one of and limited attraction for freight. So we kind of saw that decrease and one of the reasons that one, we moved past that.
And if you don't show that regional impact, then MnDOT and the federal will view it more as, well, that's your own issue and you need to bear that cost. So you need to stay focused on that regional aspect as well.
So where do we go from here? So we have published our final deliverable, which is our final Pell study report. We had it out for our public comment period, our 30-day comment period. We are working on the response to the comments. We received 128 public comments and 3 or 4 agency comments. Most of the public comments were about County Road 11 and why would you do B3? Why is B3 even being considered and carried forward? So we are trying to do our best to explain that and what's next and how this works. And then there were also, I would say, some new people. You know, it's just such a large area, so there were some new people who were just kind of catching up to this process as well and giving us comments on all of the alternatives, which was good to see too. So there is still a lot of process moving forward. So good news, Sherburne County does have deed funding for a Tier 1 EIS, which the purpose of that is to then pick one corridor. So we go through this process to, now we're at 3 corridors, get it to 1. And so to do this additional analysis, especially that's required with the Wild and Scenic River, to get it to 1 preferred corridor location. So you can say, okay, we are planning around D2 or D3 or whatever that may be. And then seek funding and kind of continue that funding path, because then you keep working for, okay, now let's get to a preferred alternative for construction. And then you work on the pieces of, you know, preliminary design, final design. You know, this is a long process. There's many years of design and construction and funding ahead, but the ball's rolling, and I think that's the important part. And I know agencies, you know, both counties are working hard to, you know, even put in for things like corridors of commerce and just keep that funding ball rolling when opportunities arise. To just, now that this is done, there's a huge benefit to saying, we've already got this done. We've already got a head start, because one of the main questions with funding is always, have you done your environmental work? Well, we can now answer that question, yes. It's not all the way done, but we've got a great start on it, and that's a big leg up. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the process or what's next.
So we're looking at probably starting construction in the spring.
Yeah.
That's what
Spring,
people want.
Yeah, I know.
What is the, seriously, so given where we are in the
Yeah.
process, what's the most likely year that construction would start?
You know, this is probably an 8 to 10 year process when you
From
think.
this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and really it's just the scale of the cost. This is a couple $100 million improvement. And so even to just assemble funding. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't see pieces start to happen, right? You know, interchanges on either end start to be built.
Right.
And that was part of what we did in the Pell study is once you can identify, I think this next step with the Tier 1 EIS is really critical, because once you can get to 1 corridor, then you can start to build the pieces and kind of just work on the pieces. And the study report for each of the 3 alternatives that are out there yet does identify the pieces that you could do and how you could phase that incrementally.
I guess the other question I have is just for when we talk to the public about it. You've got the scorecard on the public input.
Yeah.
Is there a similar scorecard that you would have done internally for which alternatives are most attractive for reducing traffic concerns or increasing traffic flow? And I guess a third one would be around a scorecard around cost.
Yes.
Does that exist? Is that something that we
Yep.
can see?
I didn't include it in here, but we did at all of our engagement events, and I can certainly get it out to this group. We have a summed up evaluation matrix, which shows by our needs that we had identified how each alternative scored.
Okay.
And then we have a cost matrix of how the cost of each, and then another one that shows the benefit cost. So when you kind of put those things together, what are the benefit cost ratios of each?
If you wouldn't mind sending that out, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
And like Angie referred to, we are also showing that we're doing other things to help alleviate the importance of the County Road 11 and Highway 10 interchange that is being worked on. That shows that we're trying to, because we still need to do that even when a bridge would be selected to build, because that still would be a concern for flowing traffic that would not be going to the west.
You're doing them or you're talking about them?
No, we're in the process of planning them. So we got
So
money
it's
from,
been solidified on which options are going?
no, not, this is for the one that's already existing. So we're showing that we're trying to alleviate issues now with the existing crossing, which is
Right, I
important
understand.
to the to the state and the feds that you're working
But
on
has
that.
has the option been approved and it's moving ahead into making those
Yeah,
changes?
we got $1 million grant with the assistance of BNSF to, plan that. And then it is because it goes along with 25 wanting to take stoplights out, and it's a high crash and, death. We've had experienced deaths.
I thought that $1 million grant that was for a study, not for
No, we got a grant to help, fund the cost of the planning of it.
oh, okay,
That's a separate,
okay.
yeah, and that was through the railroad,
Yeah.
elimination
Yep,
of.
it's called Chrissy, it's about railroad elimination.
Yeah, so we have benefited from some good amount of dollars to help through these processes that we're doing along with the Pell study. So yeah, but yes, people want to see this done tomorrow, but as Angie said, it's a big dollar thing that we have to fundraise for. And we're also in the process of working on that with our other component of CMRP.
Right. And then it was mentioned before the meeting, but MnDOT is also doing a study of existing 25 because whatever may happen here, because it's out so far and it takes a while, they still own existing 25. And there are problems out there today. And there are likely things that can be done to make it better. We can't just live with what's out there, for the next 10 years. So they are looking at what incremental small steps can be done to make it better. And that's what their study is working on right now.
I'm sorry, that's what I was referring to.
Oh, sure.
So
Yes,
I
yeah.
got the two
Yeah.
projects
Yeah.
confused.
And there is funding, we did receive funding to put a trail in between Big Lake and the bridge, which goes to the piece of the walkability and bicycle and of course e-bikes or e-transportation now that would help get cars off of that area. So yeah.
So Jared, you have plants on both sides of the creek. You run a lot of trucks. You did expand your Big Lake operations. How big of a discussion was transportation during this? And how big of a discussion is transportation continually when your truck drivers come in and say, sorry, I'm late, but couldn't get through here and we're interrupted, so where I'm going is from an economic development. I think this thing has been terrible for economic development for both sides of the river for many years. And there again, it started 20 years ago.
You mean the limited bridge options?
Yeah, or improvements to 25 that are just being discussed now, like, oh, this problem didn't exist for the last 15 years. I mean, we had that presentation here a few months ago, which seemed rather ridiculous, like
But
this was
unfortunately
new.
with MnDOT, they've been in preservation mode for so long because of funding. They haven't been but they're getting there now. They're actually starting to change that mindset.
But how big of a limitation, discussion, pain in the ass is it for you guys that are actually trying to do business and pay taxes here?
Yep, I will tell you for any project that we do, priority, or the first two steps you gotta do to move forward are the biggest things you look at, is one, workforce, two, logistics and supply chain. So with us, luckily, we're split a little bit on what's north of Highway 10 for incoming. So that was beneficial, but we do constantly deal with delays with stuff coming off the 94 corridor as well too, which then gives advantages to businesses south of the river as well too, from a supply chain standpoint. Is it enough to affect interruptions? Not for us. Is it enough to deter someone from building something similar up here? Absolutely.
All right, any other questions for Angie? Any other discussion? All right, well, thank you so much for your time and a
Thanks,
good
Angie.
presentation.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
On this note, then, I was thinking we should probably bring in Emma and Shane from Flaherty and Hood that we're working with on the other component of we've turned it into a nonprofit that can help to facilitate getting funding, getting businesses involved, kind of like the 94 corridor. So maybe we should have them come in and give a presentation to the business community. Might be helpful.
Come in to present to the EDA board or come in to present more to the businesses in the county?
Well, the EDA board along with, I think we need to start getting that word out to the businesses.
So maybe set up
Thank you, Angie.
Thanks, Angie.
a presentation tour with the chambers.
I think that would be also really good. But talk to Dan on that one and see if, like I said, I think it's good for them to hear too, that there's another component of trying to gather the funds.
All right, anything else? We'll move on to number 5, which is the marketing outreach presentation by Brian.
Yeah, and that conversation kind of leads into this kind of nicely. So I know our board in the last few months, we've kind of talked about marketing in kind of a general sense. So I wanted to put down on paper what all we've done in the last few months, getting out there, projecting out the different programs and things that we do. So that way people know what our board does and what I do for the county. And then really asking you guys, what do we want to see more of? What focus is missing from what we've been doing? And really kind of get an even clearer grasp of when we talk about marketing for the EDA, what are we talking about? And what does that mean for each one of us? So I kind of just put it into our categories of our main focus areas. So first one is just that business retention and expansion. So when we go out and do these site tours, often we try and get a post out about it, and generally we're posting on LinkedIn. And the reason why I do that is we have more business professionals and community members that would be interested in this area on LinkedIn. And Facebook is, we just have one central Sherburne County Facebook page, and so that's kind of a coordination with Dave Unzi. So we seem to be getting some pretty good traction with the LinkedIn posts and just putting it out there, information. People seem to like to know that we're getting out there and meeting with the businesses. This would be a point of question for all of you at the end is, where else could we be sharing that we are meeting with businesses? Part of that too is getting more on radio and different media outlets. So on the business side of it, we did get to, I got to be a guest with Work-Right Radio and WJON on the workforce side of it. So Work-Right Radio was more of a general sense of why people would like to work in Sherburne County, what are some of our key industries in Sherburne County, what are we doing in Sherburne County to make it a place that people would want to live and work. WJON, that was the intended goal, but we ended up having more of a childcare conversation, which we'll hit on the childcare page. But, and really just a continued effort, business by business. So a lot of this business retention and expansion visits and meeting with businesses isn't out there on a marketing sense because we are just working with that business one-on-one and seeing what needs they have. And oftentimes it's that workforce side of it. So then we end up connecting them with CMJTS with some of their training programs. We end up referring them out to Minnesota DEED with some of their programs too, and being that coordinating partner of some of that. On the housing side, hopefully you all have seen this at this point or have heard that this is coming up. If not, next Tuesday, we're trying to bring together all of our great city folks. So thank you all for signing up and having folks from each of the cities sign up. And we have a few townships that have also signed up to be here. Really having tables that are set for each of the submarkets of that housing study to keep moving forward with what are areas of housing that your community is interested in, and what partnerships would you like to further develop for continuing to push that forward with new development, with new construction. So we've really been doing a big media push out for that. We now have 60 RSVPs for that, which is right about where we want to be. We don't want to get too much higher because it's going to be in the Maple Conference Room, and we're going to be at tables. This is a big coordination also with public health, central Minnesota United Way, Granite Table, looking at it from a data perspective there too. So this one has been put out to all of our, again, cities, townships, our builders, developers, some local lenders and real estate agents, and also media will be there too. So we have Patriot News is coming to that, St. Cloud Live is coming to that, and then I'll do a story afterwards with WJON to recap what all happened with that event to keep pushing forward with housing development in different areas. One thing on the housing that we haven't pushed out too much yet, but we're already starting to get a lot of attention for, is that homeowner rehabilitation loan program. So since it was approved, we kind of wanted to slow roll it a little bit just to get in a good application or a few applications to kind of run the whole process and see how that goes. It will be part of my updates here as well, but we did actually get an application all the way through the process to being actually approved for the first loan through that program. So that first loan is a homeowner in Zimmerman that had a failing well. And because of his failing well, the home was starting to get issues with actually having any sort of water in the house. And so because that was a failing system, and because of his credit score is very low, and a local lender confirmed that because of that, he did not qualify for any Minnesota housing programs. And so that project cost is $16,450 to install a new well for his house. And that has been approved to go ahead and move forward with our program. So we're very excited about that. So now that we've kind of run that process, we've been working really closely with planning and zoning to how to actually take some of those fees that are associated with that. Now we feel kind of comfortable with that process. So now, as we discuss what we want to do with marketing in the future, we can really push out that program and get the word out about it if we'd like to. Even without doing a lot of getting that program out yet, in the last 2 weeks I've received 5 phone calls and emails and 5 correspondence with 5 different homeowners that are all very interested in the program already. I do think that 3 of them are probably viable. They haven't, I'm waiting to see if they'll apply for the Minnesota housing programs first. One of them wanted to install a sauna, so that's outside the realm of our.
Good luck with that.
So it's good to see. So we had the failing well, which is the one that we approved. And then the 3 others are more HVAC, so they have failing HVAC systems to different degrees, and then the sauna. So it's nice to see sauna obviously out, but we can kind of see what is going to be the focus of this. And what we're seeing so far with these first 5 is that most of them are coming to us because they have a low credit score, and they're not qualifying for Minnesota housings because of their credit score. So far, that's what we're seeing. But anyway, on the marketing side, we can discuss about how we want to keep pushing that out there and having more people know about that. And that would be the planned, just getting out there to different realtors, lender groups, doing presentations at each of the cities. I know I'll be presenting to the Big Lake EDA here soon, I think in September. So that's on the housing side. For childcare, really the map that we have created, the interactive map, keeps getting really positive attention, and we keep talking about it at different marketing events. So again, that WJON interview I did with Gail with Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation, and we were talking about partnerships in general, and both of us intended to do workforce, but we ended up talking about this childcare map and how Stearns County, Benton County, and Wright County are all interested in actually developing a similar map. And so that's where the childcare focus has kind of been as far as marketing and letting people know what we're doing with childcare. I'd be curious a discussion of, from a marketing standpoint, when it comes to childcare, what else we want to also market in addition to this map, or how we want to be involved in that childcare space. But again, lots of LinkedIn posts that do get a lot of attention there, lots of reposts. The WJON article seems to be getting good attention for that too. And I'll also be presenting on our childcare map at the Rural Ideas Network Summit, which is the Rural Ideas Network is the organization we partner with for the business lab. And they do a yearly summit, and so that's the project that they chose for us to present about just how a agency can move forward with in a collaborative approach. So we'll be doing that presentation too.
I think on the childcare map, it would be interesting as some of the other counties come online, to have some way to make it easy to interact with those other counties. For example, for here, there's 5, I think, childcare centers being built in Otsego. Right, that's not gonna show up on our map. But if we have Elk River residents that have easy access to childcare, that gives workforce opportunities in Sherburne County. So, it's just something to think about. We need to not be too restrictive on the border, how we think about that, just because of proximity to other opportunities.
More of a regional.
And truthfully, we're trying to explore how that could be done, because that's exactly our thought too, is you'd hate for a parent to have to go onto 4 different maps, so as they're navigating this area, especially if you're thinking about 7W as the whole, as the 4 different counties. Someone like a partner, so we do have some upcoming meetings with Initiative Foundation, just to explore who could take on a regional map, where would our role in that be? And so that's, yeah, I totally agree with you there. Because of the other counties' interest, we might be able to move closer to a regional map.
And there could be an interim step where somehow you've got the Sherburne County map, but maybe there's a box below that says, just gives an aggregate number. There are, however, 47 openings in Wright County, click here.
I like that.
And it hops over to the Wright County map, right? You could do an interim solution like that. That's not necessarily the full regional map too.
I like that, yeah.
I was just curious too, in regards to childcare, have we connected with the schools and their aspects of what, their preschool opportunities and their after-school opportunities?
Yes, those,
Pardon? Oh, and the Y,
yes.
yeah.
So all those fall under certified childcare with the state, and so we've connected with all of them, and they're on the map too. So the map has 3 different dots. The third type of dot is the certified childcare, and so that's all the schools and the YMCA, and they fall under that class called certified childcare, and they're on there too. They actually really boosted our numbers for preschool and school-age kids availability, and so that was helpful to see. On the transportation side, we've really been doing, at least for my role, a big focus on the Zimmerman project, because it is impacting the businesses directly. We have been told that by the businesses very clearly, that it is impacting their businesses. So trying to figure out how best economic development can support those businesses. A big part of that is just giving them information straight from Public Works. Twice a month, we have our Zimmerman Communication Group, which is a Zoom call that anyone can join. We've had business owners along that corridor join in at different times, and they can hear directly from Dave Rodell what's happening next and be able to ask questions directly to Dave, who's heading up this entire project here. We're also working with Orange Ball to do these types of public announcement type of posts through the Zimmerman Facebook page. So really, the Zimmerman Facebook page posts it first, and then we repost it on the county's website, on the county's Facebook page. That shows things that are coming up next. So like we know on Monday of next week, the road's gonna be closed for a few hours as they do a sewer stormwater part of the construction. We're getting out a post, I think it's coming out today, that says, hey, just as a heads up, on Monday, this section will be closed. And we found that the Zimmerman Facebook page has enough viewership that seems to be disseminating the word as best as possible. That's been a bit of a struggle, is how do you get that word out quickly? But, and we've also just been working with the businesses to get connected with the Zimmerman Business Council, which is an offshoot of the Elk River Chamber of Commerce. So Zimmerman's growing their own Chamber of Commerce again, and it's the Zimmerman Business Council. So that's, from the transportation side, that's really been my focus as far as marketing and getting out there and trying to get the word out.
On that shutdown on my desk yesterday, but did we reach out specifically to the businesses to let them know that that road's gonna be closed that day.
I know that this afternoon, Debbie and I with the Elk River Chamber are gonna be making some of those calls and or even just going up there.
Just to make sure Jim knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Andrew doesn't want to get.
I will get a phone call.
And then just in general, as far as like a general out there marketing, we've been actively updating the website. So now the website is hopefully easier for people to use whenever they want to look at economic development. We have everything that people are at, whenever people call in and ask about different things, that's kind of what ends up on this front page. So we have our homeowner rehabilitation loan program right away. We have the Zimmerman County Road updates right away, the business lab, and then childcare. So we have that right away on the main page. I've been included in the newsletter so people can see my face out there. There's that Patriot News article that I was a new employee, so I was getting a lot of congratulations on your new role after a few months, yeah. But that way, you know, the face is getting out there, people kind of know who I am. It's been almost exactly a year at this point, and I feel like generally people know who I am out in the community, and there's always more businesses to reach out to, and that's always gonna be a goal. But we're trying to just be out there and be present at these different things, and whenever there's a groundbreaking, ribbon cutting, open house, you know, making that a priority, so.
So this one person that got the loan and all the inquiries, how are they hearing about this?
Yeah, so that one was really exciting because they heard about it from Sherburne State Bank, because I had talked about this program to some of the Sherburne State Bank people that were at one of the activities that I was at. So it was a nice way, it was through a lender.
So then it probably would be a good idea to go to these banks.
Yep.
I think there's 5 in Big Lake, and I think there's a handful in Becker and quite a few in Elk River, so they all know.
We're getting more.
Yeah. So, oh, don't talk to people on Facebook about banks, they don't want.
Big Lake's credit unions.
Yeah. One thing I was curious about, I know that, and I probably should know this, and you might be doing it still, but we used to have all of the cities available for land development, whether it be for commercial, industrial, or housing development opportunities. Have we still, I mean, because I think it's important that there's a place, if someone's searching us, we have these links too, if you want to come to Sherburne County to do something. Do we still have that?
Yeah, we still have that, I don't have it on here, but it's through our, one of our tabs. It goes through, it's not LoopNet, but it's the other provider that we're with, Lois. So it provides all the available land throughout the county and also the available commercial buildings. So that might be something to further talk about and maybe put on the main page too.
Yeah, because our opportunity awaits. It ties into that, hey, we have land available to present you the opportunity to do something.
Yeah.
And we're the county to do it in.
I'd like to make that more
Okay.
clear on the
Perfect.
site. And on kind of to that note too, which takes us to just kind of what do we want to see next. I have a meeting with our Human Resources Department next month about they're looking into maybe doing some billboards for the county, just as a general advertisement about living and working in Sherburne County. So they're looking into it. They want to pair that with economic development and see where that makes sense to be with economic development. So just something else to throw out there as we think about future marketing. I know our tagline is making Sherburne County the county of choice for residents and businesses. I think that's a pretty good tagline for.
And I can see you doing something like what you do. I love to watch your videos where he's in front of something or he's showing something. Super excited about the indoor pickleball thing, and so I think that those are opportunities. People remember that kind of stuff. So congratulations, I think your marketing is really, and if we could do more of something like that.
For those open for business reels, where do you post them?
Facebook.
Yeah,
Reels.
Facebook and on YouTube, and then we host them on our economic development website too. We kind of have a library for our development minutes, which the ones that I'm in, and then open for business reels as well.
Do you put them on the bulletin boards then, or not on the Elk River bulletin board, or just on your own Facebook
Yeah,
page?
just city and economic development Facebook pages.
And other businesses, I'm assuming, see those things and they're like, hey, this city looks like it's got it going on, I wanna check it out.
We should think about, I'm not saying we should, but we should think about whether if we start copying those things, we start doing those, you do more of those, should we reshare those through everybody's Facebook
Networks.
page? It'll just drive engagement across all the Facebook pages. So rather than just showing up on your page, maybe it should be reposted on the Sherburne County page as well.
Yeah, good idea.
Do you post anything on LinkedIn?
We've kind of pulled back on LinkedIn. Same with X. We're really getting far away from X now. But yeah, our communications team was kind of iffy on those going on LinkedIn. So I think there's been a few out there, but I think the future is hazy if those continue on LinkedIn.
I don't know. I'm not very positive on LinkedIn. I think it's
Old.
I think it's just recruiters at this point, but I'm also biased because I don't use it anymore.
We're definitely going to reach our residents through Facebook compared to LinkedIn. So.
On the Facebook side of the house, I wanted to ask, right now we have the Sherburne County Facebook page for all the updates. Would there ever be a reason, kind of like what it sounds like you're doing, to break off a separate Sherburne County EDA Facebook page and run that independently, or just work with Dave Unzi and get our posts through the main Facebook page?
Well, it depends on your goals. Do we do any kind of SEO for the website?
Website, we know that we're getting more web traffic from this time last year. We did run that number, but we don't have anything more specific. But we do have that information we can pull as far as like average web traffic.
Well, I mean, all I'm thinking is if we wanted to increase, I'm not sure that we can do it internally. It might take an agency, because I don't know how to do it. But if you're wanting to increase your search engine optimization for, say, specifically the economic development website, engagement with Facebook and Google AdWords will help drive that. So when people Google things, it starts to pop up more higher in the search results. But that costs money, and we got to make sure that it's the right thing to do. But it doesn't cost anything to have an extra Facebook page, except time. One thing I was wondering about, people still, how many chambers do we have in Sherburne County?
Three, I think.
Most of our pages. So if you count St. Cloud, Becker, Big Lake, Elk River, and Zimmerman, all have one in Princeton. So all of our cities, except for Baldwin.
I'd like to get, sort of what the feeling is from the group, but, we always struggle with people, business owners, residents in general, knowing what the county does or what it has to offer. And I know we engage with the chambers. Should we look at partnering with the chambers to almost have one of their events at the county and set it up as almost a trade show, with different booths that the businesses could go to and learn about different aspects that, that we offer. Start out with the chamber and see if we can educate more businesses on what's available and what we're trying to do and that sort of thing.
Kind of like what Elk River Chamber does in that leadership seminar, it would be nice to see more of the other chambers replicate that, because they do a lot of, you look at the schools, you look at all different aspects of Elk River, and I've watched it over time, and it's fascinating to me that it's such a learning experience for most people.
Well, maybe the first step is to talk to Debbie and just say, hey, what would be the right forum to maybe get more business involvement from the chambers that she runs several of them now.
Yep.
You know, should we do once every 6 months, twice a year, have a chamber event here, and it's an opportunity for, to explore, to present. I wouldn't do it as a presentation. I'd do it more as an interactive, you walk around, you meet each other, not necessarily a networking event, but something that they can self-pace and that sort of thing, but something to think about.
I think that'd be pretty easy to pull off, and we can do it as a tri-chamber, quad chamber, because I know Julie with Big Lake and Amy with Becker are always interested in doing a cross-chamber event. So it could be we invite out, say it's a tri-chamber event at Sherburne County, talking about Sherburne County's departments, and we have in the Maple Room the different departments set up so that people can go through and see what they do and how that could impact their business or benefit their business. I think if we invite all the chambers out, we'd have enough people, and if it's an open house, it doesn't become too many either.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing it as an open house. It also would be nice to have a forum where we get feedback from them on, what do you guys see? How could we get the word out more? Just more ideas and more eyes on it. It wouldn't really cost anything.
Yeah, no. Any other marketing thoughts before we?
The one thing that, when we're talking about chambers, not every business is a member of a chamber. So there are a good number of businesses that I don't know how we outreach to them. But that would be something to explore. How do we include that? And maybe the chambers open it up to all businesses, because it also provides the opportunity for a business maybe to want to join that particular chamber. Yeah.
Haven't you visited every business in Sherburne County?
Every time I think I'm getting close, I discover like a whole
There's
lot.
more.
Yeah. But to your point, I've hit a lot of the larger employers. With that being said, there's still more. And then there's always more small businesses. There's always more people looking to start businesses. So yeah, that's going to be ongoing forever.
All right, is that it for your presentation on that?
Yep.
So I think you still have the talking stick then for number 6.
Yeah, number 6 is quick and very positive. All three, so Sherburne County, Stearns County, and Benton County have all passed their resolutions of support for the 7W region. Our application for the 7W region, again, that's for the federal EDD designation with the US EDA. And so now that we have all three counties' resolutions of support, we're going to keep moving forward with our federal contact to really gear up our application and hopefully submit. The time frame is looking, we're trying to be aggressive about it and try to submit within September. We'll be curious to see with our, it has to go through our federal contact. So he works for the EDA, and we work with him to make sure that our application is exactly what it needs to be before he basically recommends our application to be approved for that 7W region. So these three resolutions of support were really key to making sure that our application is complete. So now that we have these, we might have to do a little bit of updating on our comprehensive economic development, I always forget the S, our SEDS document. Strategy, thank you. And so we might have to do some updating there, but we are hoping that September we can actually keep pushing it forward and be aggressive about that to do the final push. So that is a very positive update for us. All three counties are on board with that. And at this point, Wright County is not looking into that as far as resolutions of support, but we do hope that if this becomes a thing and we become the 7W region, that they see the benefit and they want to be more involved.
All right. Move right into your executive report.
Yep, sure. And updates-wise, on the entrepreneurship side, we are partnering with Wright County to get more people to sign up for the Enterprise Academy. So the Enterprise Academy is kind of very similar to what the IoT Academy was doing, but it's a 12-week in-person course for people that are considering starting up a business and don't really know how to write up a business plan or don't really know if their business idea is feasible. This is a 12-week program to get them through that tail end. It is through the Initiative Foundation, and it is a program that they ran successfully in St. Cloud and a few other locations, so we're excited to bring it into Sherburne and Wright County. And that will actually start on September 11th, so we're in the application window right now, trying to get, again, on that marketing side, that push out there to connect with people that are considering starting businesses. So if you happen to know anybody, the more applications, the better on that.
Could you put something on, just one of the, I think would be a good test, just on one of the bulletin boards about it, and just see if you get any traction? I mean, it's a free to get on either Zimmerman or Elk River, Big Lake. I mean, there's a lot of people who are maybe going to start a business, but they don't even know where the first step is even to look, and they're always looking on the local gossip, so. That's,
You're talking about like the Christmas trade?
yeah, and is there a bullet, do you guys have a bulletin board? I know Zimmerman has a bulletin board, like, just like the local, I think there does.
I think there's like a Facebook, but I don't know who the admin is for that.
Yeah, I don't,
can
usually
look
it's
into
just
that.
some local
Yeah.
people
I
that.
think Elk River has a couple, Big Lake I know has way too many.
Yeah, some you want to be on, some you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So doing a bigger push, and I think we'll actually print out a few, like maybe 10 copies, and actually post them at the different coffee shops that are around too, because I do see people reading those boards as well. So it is, this is probably the hardest group to reach out to, because once you have an established business, we kind of know about you. So it's getting out there into the community and getting them onto the boards. So this next few weeks here is a big push for that. Like we said on the housing side, next Tuesday is the Housing Study Action Forum. Big event. We see it as just that continuation of all the work we've been doing on housing to really help all of our communities just continue to connect with the partnerships that they need and focus on whatever housing they want to push for new construction. Really is kind of the focus for that. And we're going to talk about the federal EDD, so I think those are the main updates.
Okay, any questions for Brian? All right,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mitch, on to you.
Yeah. Quick zoning updates. So today we have 37 single-family homes. This was from our July report. ADUs, we have 6 in for permitting, 5 in for permitting, 1 was already existing. We've had 5 inquiries just in the past week, so I think the word's getting out. A lot of people, obviously it's family, parents living with their children, children living with their parents, they want to stay on the property, they have plenty of space. People are actually wanting to move into Sherburne County now from other, Hennepin County, because they have that option of a second dwelling, so that's good. As far as the zoning and subdivision ordinance update, we have our steering committee meeting on August 25th. Immediately following that meeting, we'll have our internal partners. We've been going back and forth with Golden Mink on memos and PowerPoints that we want to see presented at those meetings. We recently had a solar farm workshop with the county board. Some key items.
And by recently, he means Tuesday.
Tuesday.
That is
Very recent, still fresh. Some key items were decommissioning fee. Right now it's $100,000. We want to up that. Wright County had a good one, $200,000, and then $50,000 every
And
year.
then it was
0.5.
basically 100,000 per megawatt.
Yep. Location, some townships are not in favor of them, but there are new transmission lines that are going to the county. Get a good point, self-regulating. because they gotta follow where the transmission lines are, so.
And I think we figured it was educating some
Yeah,
of the townships
townships.
to understand that you really can't stop them, they are an allowable use.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, because all the ones we've seen so far are Excel Energy, so they're going, you know, County Road 8, you know, they're in Clear Lake Township, they're in Haven Township, obviously with the Excel one in Becker. But Conexus now has some lines going up through San Diego, Palmer. They're the ones that are, you know, they're not in favor of them, but yeah, I think some educational from those utility companies, going to meeting with them would help. Screening was a topic. We've done trees. Trees don't seem to be working, so we have to reevaluate that. One good point was soil and water test. Water, if there is an existing well on the property, to see if there are any contaminants from solar farms, you know, post when they get decommissioned. The standard plat process that was brought up at this meeting probably a year ago, that did get approved by the county board. So now with standard plats, the final plat, if it's identical from the preliminary, when all the requirements have been met, instead of going back to planning commission, we can go directly to the county board. So that could save about a month of time. Couple of new projects for the county. We have 2 new mini storages going to Big Lake Township, Spanky's Corner. That one's first phase has been complete. And then the one on 25 and 11 just got the grading plan, so that's been sent to the township for review. So the township engineer can comment on that.
Do the grading plans include, they took down all the trees already, they're pushing stuff.
Yeah,
Are they a little behind? I mean,
I think they're just clearing and grubbing right now, and then.
So that's not part of the grading plan
No,
then?
I mean, they'll prep it, because when the plat was dedicated, it showed where the large drainage utility easements were for the retention pond, so we wanted the township engineer to review that. Again, the solar farm in San Diego is a new project, and then right now we do have a new 14-lot standard plat in Livonia Township. That's going to planning commission tonight, so we haven't had a standard plat probably since the Orrock one in Pinecrest West, so. Those are some updates. Want to have any questions, or did I miss anything on the workshop?
Questions for Mitch?
I do have one question, because the ADU opportunity is kind of new, and I found it helpful when I did reach out and you sent me back kind of what the stages of the process are, because you are talking about possibly needing to put a new well on, a new septic on whatever your property is. I found that very helpful. Is there a way that that could be implemented in a kind of a guide for dummies,
Yeah,
so to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's helpful, because again, the people that are asking to do it are just homeowners. You know, they have an existing, you know, one thing that we've noticed with the existing accessory buildings, depending on how it's built, stick or post, you might need engineered plans, so we have them get in touch with Doug, our building official. He'll do a site inspection of the existing building, letting them know what, you know, requirements are before they submit the plan, so.
I think that's helpful to get those steps in front of someone, so
Mhm.
things aren't a surprise when you get down so far and it's like, well.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, because it's a hybrid, you know, from a contractor where you have an existing accessory building, but you want to convert it into living, and it wasn't built for living, but you want to convert it, so. But no, a lot of the inquiries are families that live together. They're outgrowing the house. Like the one I talked to yesterday, she moved in with her daughter and son-in-law, and they keep having more kids, and so she's getting pushed out, but she doesn't want to move. You know, she wants, they're in Orrock Township, and they want to stay there. And
I think it's cool when you find out that your kids actually want to come back and help take care of you.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, I think the big takeaway from the ADU being a singular item is, you know, good things happen when government gets the hell out of the way and listens to the constituents as what the needs out in the county are. And this is a true testament. I mean, day one that this got passed, this thing starts rolling, which means there is pent-up demand. And I think that's something good to keep in mind as we roll into the bigger ordinance review and redo here next week, I think, right?
Yep. And real quick on ADUs, it was one of those things where we talked to people each year. Oh, check next year, check next year. So now these people are checking now that had called last year, and now they're able to be, yeah, you can do it. And I mean, the relief in their voice that they can stay there is very good.
So, all
We're
right,
creating a circle, going back to the way it used to be.
Yeah.
all right, well, we got something new to our programming here, which we're excited about, Commissioner's update.
Oh, I'm sure
You're
you
so
are.
full of it.
Anytime I get a chance to give the mic to Rayanne,
Oh, yeah, whatever.
I must remind you of time
Are you wearing your
limitations.
boots? You are wearing your boots.
I'm gonna start first before Rianne talks.
He'll probably say everything I would.
Yeah, well, I'll just go two things real quick. One is, we're actively involved and just voted on a resolution with an organization to lift the ban on nuclear power in Minnesota. And we're also gonna stand up and say that we would be happy to have a nuclear plant in Sherburne County. So, with the shutdown of Sherco, we think that there's an opportunity there, especially with small modular reactors. So we're gonna, so you'll see some of that coming out. We just passed that resolution on Tuesday to join this alliance. You know, a little bit of history. The first nuclear plant
Was in Elk River.
was in Elk River, yeah, years ago. So, so we're gonna keep moving on that. The other thing that'll affect EDA and businesses is on an ancillary piece will be what we're working on refining the tobacco ordinance. That's only going to affect the unincorporated areas, but fundamentally what we're doing is we're focusing primarily on flavored vapes, and we're moving those to be sold only in tobacco shops, and the tobacco shops will have to be a certain distance from schools. Take a look at it when it comes through, but flavored vapes are targeted at kids. And so we're trying to control that a little bit. What it means is you won't be able to sell them at gas stations. But we don't want to disadvantage, I don't want to necessarily, there's other things that public health would like us to do, but I think what it would end up doing is just disadvantaging the gas station that's, across the city line versus the one that's in the city line, so I don't want to do that. But I do think we're moving in the right direction on the flavored vapes.
All right,
Pretty much exactly what he said.
great.
In discussing, in discussing the nuclear situation for the moratorium, nuclear has come so far, and I think Andrew made a really good point to how long.
Yeah, the Navy's run small nuclear reactors for 70 years.
Yeah.
So.
And so we all felt it's time for Minnesota to get out of what the fears were of the old days, and let's get moving. Because we need a grid that needs to be solid.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting space and definitely the future of energy security. Again, if government can kind of get out of the way and let it happen. But the private sector is definitely geared
Ready
up for
for it,
this and has everything ready to go. So, that's great news.
Now we just,
Mr. High Exalted Chair, would you like an update on North Star too?
Hi, what?
High
Oh, yeah.
Exalted Chair. So.
All right, we'll talk to you after the meeting. Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Chime in.
I'll let Rand, I interrupted her, so I'll let her finish her report.
Oh, she said she was done.
no, that's okay. It's. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that at our level, if we could do it and be the only entity that would make it okay, it's okay.
Absolutely.
We need everybody's help to impress upon the legislators down at the state that this is something that people are willing to see happen. So, we need your guys' input too. Okay. North
Okay.
Star.
Just real quick, the last date for North Star for commuter rail will be the 2nd of January of 2026. The last special event train will run either that Saturday or Sunday, depending on the Viking schedule, so the 3rd or the 4th of January. We'll also see the termination of the North Star Link, which is the bus that runs from St. Cloud down to Big Lake. That will, last run of that will be on December 31st, because there's no value in doing a contract. It's a lot of effort to do a contract for a couple days. So We have been engaging with both the Met Council and MnDOT to see whether or not there is a willingness and a capacity to extend their current planned replacement bus service, which would terminate at Ramsey, to extend it at least into Elk River, and possibly into Big Lake. And that would be bus service for commuter bus, basically. The issue is the Met Council is an urban transit provider, and they have a hard boundary at Sherburne County unless they contract with MnDOT to service it. Otherwise, we're now in MnDOT's rural transit area for bus service. So for the train, they had the agreement, but they don't have one for buses. So we're actually asking MnDOT to request Met Council service the corridor like they did with the train, but do it for buses. Because at this point, MnDOT is not planning on picking up bus service, and if they did, then you'd have to take a bus and change a bus, which is always frustrating and reduces ridership. If everything works out, we'll try to see if we can get some sort of limited bus service then on special event days and commuter days. The only other piece of that is it's going to take a while for MnDOT to start funding those type of things, even though they're obligated to service our area. So because we're losing the link, the county board has said we would consider if it's a reasonable cost in the short term of possibly funding that extension, because the Met Council doesn't have their sales tax authority up here. So if it's close to equivalent, because we're helping pay for the bus right now from St. Cloud to Big Lake, we would continue in the short term to pay for buses from theoretically the border of Sherburne County to Elk River and hopefully to Big Lake. The other piece of that is MnDOT is going through the disposition of assets. They are planning on removing the platforms in both Elk River. They've not made a decision on Big Lake yet, but they are planning on retaining the parking lots at this time. So theoretically, they could become park and rides, they could become bus stops. What'll be interesting is to see what they do with those 3 skywalks in the 3 cities to our east. And right now, it looks like they will actually dismantle them and remove them, which is crazy expensive for the infrastructure there. But that's the current update. There'll be some more efforts here in the next several weeks to see if we could possibly line up some bus service. The reason for it is currently 25% of ridership on North Star starts in Big Lake or Elk River, and 1/3 of the terminus trips to Minneapolis start in Big Lake and Elk River. So people are getting on there and they're riding it down to the Twin Cities, for those who are riding it. So that's an update. Hopefully I was short and sweet.
Oh, that's great. No, I'm glad you brought that up. That is a pretty big deal. One we've anticipated for a while, but seeing it come to fruition is.
And we are working with both the cities on this effort, so.
And one of the things that is interesting about the bus service is the amount of trips that are going to happen along with the times where they come back. They're gonna have, right now they're looking at an 11 o'clock back out of the cities. So that will open up opportunities for people that wanna go down and have dinner, go down and attend some kind of an event down there and get back where that was not the opportunity with.
Or come up and have dinner.
Or come up and have dinner and go back, yep. So there is also that reverse opportunity. So one other thing I wanted to mention is, and Bruce, you can probably elaborate a little bit more, but at the moment, it's been a while since we have contributed to the maintenance of North Star. And you might want to elaborate on that since the agreements terminated. The only thing that we've been contributing is the link. So you want to, because there's a lot of pushback where why aren't we just stopping it? We're paying. Well, here in Sherburne County, we're not. And this the metro sales tax that is paying for the North Star at the moment. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that one?
The way North Star was funded originally, or until recently, was the counties that, the counties basically paid for the funding of the operations along with the state government. Well, the state shifted that to the Met Council, but they put in place a regional sales tax in the 7-county metro region. So all of a sudden, those 7 counties stopped having to use their local dollars to pay for North Star, but we were not included in that. In addition, what people don't know unless you track the legislature is the new metro sales tax actually gave a kickback to those counties. So not only do they no longer pay for transit, they get more money for the roads and bridges. We get none of that. So they expected us to continue to use our local funding for North Star as the only county in the state that would be funding that. And the county board said no. So we elected not to do that quietly. You know, we talked to them and said, if there's a regional solution, we're fine with that. Maybe you have to do an 8th cent sales tax in Sherburne. So we don't have all the other transit costs like the 7-county metro, but we would have to have that done by the legislature. The board's not going to do that. And we never got through that because they killed North Star before that. But there was a huge equity issue that led to that conclusion.
Well, thank you to the wisdom of our county board.
Mark the date.
I can't believe I said that either.
Is that in the minutes, by the way?
All right, is there anything else on anybody's mind? All right, next meeting is the 18th of next month at 8 o'clock, and I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. 5 minutes early. Good job.